inside the crazy ant farm. How are you?
I am amazing. How are you?
Oh, doing fantastic. Living the dream, as we always say. And boy, are we super excited to talk to you for several reasons. Number one, you're our first guest post strikes, which is really exciting. Number two, you have an amazing film that we have both seen and watched, and we can't wait to talk to you about. But here's the biggie, Nadine, and we haven't told you this prior to in all of our communications back and forth, but you, Nadine Crocker, are our 200th guest. Yes. Yes. That's a huge deal. Yeah, we are so excited it ended up being you. I mean, that's like, because your story is so remarkable and this film is so we couldn't think of a better person to be the 200th guest.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so honored. And like kick ass, you guys.
Yeah, woo.
Yes, that's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy road. Let's just say that. But I mean, we've had some amazing people that we've been able to learn a lot from. Like, I'm sure we'll be able to learn a lot from you ourselves because we are directors ourselves. And just, doing everything in the filmmaking industry, you do wear a lot of hats sometimes. So it's important trying to balance everything. But yeah, we're super excited. I'm super thankful for you taking time out of your day just to come on and get a little crazy with us.
Oh, hell yes.
Fantastic. Well, how we always like to start these things is to do a little introduction for people who might not be familiar with you and your story. How did you get started? So we find that so many people's paths are different. Did you know that you always wanted to be a filmmaker or in the industry from a very early start? Did you kind of fall into it? Tell us how you got started.
I'm like one of those classic cliches, like little girl watched movies. It actually all started with my dad's music videos. He was a country singer. So I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and I grew up watching his music videos. And what's amazing now is like I'm a grown adult, I'm realizing. So I always thought I wanted to be the actress in the videos, and because I would see myself and create these stories through hearing the song. And so in my mind, I'd watch this story unfold, and I was always the actor, like in the story as it was unfolding. I guess as like an adult, I don't even know what I was thinking as a little girl. And now I'm like, you weren't trying to act, you were trying to tell stories, you were trying to direct, you were coming up with whole stories for songs and all of these different things. So, it's like funny now as a writer director, and that primarily being my vocation, as where I started in acting. It's like funny to look back now through a different eyes and see that I was actually always being drawn towards storytelling and I didn't even know it yet. But yeah, so I started in acting, and I'll start at like the beginning because I feel like I never tell people this. I went to one of those conventions out of Fresno because that's where I grew up. So when we moved back from Tennessee, I grew up in Sacramento, a little town called Rio Linda, and then majority of my life was in Fresno. And I was like 15 or maybe early 16, and I went to this convention that I heard on the radio, and it was like, you want to act, you want to do this, you want to be a model, like go here. And you paid like a little fee to go to it. And like, so we drove down to LA where the convention was. And like, lo and behold, I mean, I'm 5'5", so I think my modeling career was never going to be like a very large thing. I wasn't going to be walking down the red carpets. And thank God at that time I had the balls that I was like, I want to be an actress more than I want to be a model. I'm going to get up there and I'm going to do this monologue. And what they told you when you came into this convention is to choose something that you could be doing on television or movies. And I guess I didn't compute that because I did this scene where this mother is talking to the grave of like her husband and not sure how she's gonna raise her child and like all of this shit. And I'm like 15 years old.
Yeah.
But I'm crying and I'm having this whole reaction. And so I ended up being one of the people with the most callbacks for acting and 0 for modeling. So thank God, because I'm sure they were there for Wilhelmina and like runway models and some actors. So that is literally what started it. And then by like 16, I was commuting back and forth. I got reps because of that convention.
Wow.
And was commuting back and forth, and it was getting so much that like I'd get home from 2 auditions and then we'd get a call that I had one the next day. And like we were a family of very little means. So like that gas money and driving back and forth. And so like at 16, my parents had a very real, like we all did, real conversation of like, if you're going to do this, I have this feeling you need to do this, you know, but they had jobs, they had lives. So I actually moved out there on my own. I always get, so it was like end of 16, early 17. So I got 3 jobs, moved out to Los Angeles on my own, and the rest is history. And I made a little name for myself acting. And, you know, it was my absolute all and passion. Like there's, you know, when you say like the 10,000 hours, like that's all I slept, breathed, and lived, other than waitressing to pay my damn bills.
Wow.
And yeah, so that started the journey. And then I was like 27, I think, something like that, and had just had a baby. And you know, and something like that was actually a really hard thing to go through, but I got dropped by all my reps. They were like, you're like young chick, we don't know what we're gonna do with you now. I'm like, I'm still the hot young chick, I just also have a child.
Right.
I didn't know that made me over the hill, especially at the age of 27, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because the best thing about rock bottom and having no idea what you're going to do is like, all you can do is build. And like, you have also, I think, the bravery to be like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to change how I envision this completely. And I basically was like, I'm going to stop asking for permission, because I had been trying to write for a while, but no one really took me seriously because I was the actress and and so I would get these big reps that won't read my writing, that won't give me the time of day as this career and this person I believe that I am. And so finally, through them all like minusing themselves from the equation, I realized there was no one stopping me but me. So I could either go for my dreams and like make it happen and stop asking for permission to do it, or not. And so that became the journey. And then I produced from the ground up my first film, Continue, and raised every dime of capital. And that was like, I wore every hat you can possibly have. I know you guys get it. You just, like we were just saying, we're both directors, we wear a million hats. I was like, no, like, hi, director, producer, writer, lead star actor that's in absolutely every scene, crafty, this, you know, like you name it. I was
right.
dancing monkey, like balancing hats on top of my head. But thank God, because that led me to knowing exactly what to do with Desperation Road and having 16 days to make it and very little means. So that is my story in a very quick nutshell.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing, because I mean, you do accomplish so much in that time span, right? And you feel like it goes like that. You don't feel like it's been so many years since you started, which is crazy, because I mean, coming from our own experience, it just feels like yesterday when him and I both met to where we first started our own thing. But then, you know, there are trials and tribulations that come along, and it is a very rocky road. And sometimes you get off the path, but then there's always that thing that puts you back on the path. So something that we really enjoy talking about, and we always say we love getting comfortable conversations from uncomfortable subject matters. So mental health is a big thing for us.
That's my jam, by the way. I love
yes.
I'm like, let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Let's get into the nitty gritty. But I mean, you know, with those trials and tribulations and the path of, you know, bobbing and weaving when every like fist is coming at your face, like how do you continue moving forward? Because I know sometimes things are lighter than others and things are darker than others. So how do you continue moving forward in such a selective industry, as we like to say?
I mean, that's actually a great question, because I think that's probably an answer that we're like constantly coming up with on the fly and continuing to unfold, because it's like what I maybe did in the past to get through those trials and tribulations, I handle completely differently now, but it doesn't mean that we don't still get punched in the face every other day, you know? So it's like, in those years, I think I was much more easily broken, in the sense of like those punches in the face would definitely keep me down a little bit longer, and they hurt like a lot more, you know? And
for sure.
and you start to get used to it. I think it's probably with like any fighter, right? Their first fight, they're like, oh, fudge, it hurts to get your whole face broken, or like beat up. And by like becoming a champion, you're like, that's nothing, like bring it. So I think that you learn how to live with rejection and with people not believing in you. And the truth is, and like, as you touched on mental health, all of those things, like I'm a suicide survivor. So at 23, I tried to end my life, and I went through like one of the hardest times of my life. And that wasn't just the industry, but there was a huge part of it, that was like constant rejection makes it really hard to feel like you're okay or you're special or like all these things you've thought of yourself your whole life are true. When someone's constantly telling you no, you're like, but I believe I have that within me. Like, how do you keep going when the answer is just always no,
Right.
and that's the thing that we continue to develop. And it was like, for me, I had to personally within my own life start from rock bottom and go, who do I want to be? And that's just definitely not who I am right now. And then what is the first step I take? So my answer is still the same. What is the first step I can take? And what can I control, right? Because there's so much in our life and so much in this industry that's completely out of our control. But what can we control, right? Well, we can control reading a book that talks to us about this. We can control sitting down behind a computer and writing, as opposed to letting someone's negativity keep us from doing it and letting it be the excuse. Like, that is something that I think defines me in comparison to a lot of people that I know, is that there will always be excuses.
Exactly.
Always be too busy. There will always be 1,000 things happening, and this person just punched me in the face, and this rejection hurt, and my son's doing this, and this is that. And I just go, I don't really give a fuck. Sit down behind your computer and write those pages you said you were going to write, and put in your hours today. And then you can complain about it. Then
That's
you
right.
can cry, and it's also like people, and this is something like we're raised with. I don't say this as a negativity. Almost some of us can't help it. Like, we kind of are raised with this victim mentality.
Oh, without doubt.
And I just was like, nope. How can I reprogram that? Because this is either, and this is a lot of like therapy and life coaches and all of these things. But the question I always ask myself now is, how is this working for me?
Yes.
So what I've realized is almost all the rejection and all the pain I've endured has led me actually to where I was supposed to be.
Yes.
So and sometimes we don't know it's divine timing.
Exactly. And I love that, because it is flipping the narrative, right? It's like, how is this working for me? That is the flip from why is this happening to me, right? Mm-hmm. And it's totally how you approach it. And, you say the things that we can control. One of the things that we can control is a platform like this. Logan and I have opened up in the past too. We both come from really traumatic backgrounds and not so easy lives also. We've both opened up about our own contemplating suicide and dealing with death and the different things. And thankfully, we had some people, him for me and me for him, that prevented that, thank goodness. But I feel like more open dialogue, taking away the stigma, letting people know you're not alone. You aren't the only one going through it. Look, here's 3 of us. We've all gone through it, and now we're all living our dreams, and we're making it, and we're doing okay, and you will be too. So I think the more that we can do that for people, the more that we can get that out there, that's going to help also, because I feel like it's so... people just want to shove it aside and act like it's not there and not real. And so that's what we try to do. That's why we are so thankful for people like you, and thank you for opening up about that. We're on here to talk about an awesome film and talk about, oh, hey, we're filmmakers and we're living our dreams, but to open up and share such a personal story and a personal side, that's going to help a lot of people, and we always appreciate when our guests do that. And so thank you. You are an inspiration, not only to us, but to all of our people out there. And like you have been told, you are tribe, you are us. So we appreciate you. And I'm just going to go. Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead, Logan.
I was going to say, it's pretty funny because while everything's been shut down, we haven't been able to do guests for this specific podcast. So we've just been doing guests for our mental health podcast, because normally the mental health conversation comes later on in this conversation, but we've been so geared towards talking about it that we were just like, no, we have to, bring it to the forefront and have this conversation. But yeah, I just think it's kind of funny that, it kind of switched gears a little bit, because we've been so trained for the past 6 or 7 months to just specifically talk about mental health. It's so funny.
Okay, well, I've got a good transition. Oh, no, go ahead.
Wait, before you transition, I just have to say, like, that's the thing. Like, I cannot wait. Soon my first film is coming out. We had to hold it because the strikes and everything, because I'm in that movie. So because of I'm SAG and DGA.
Oh, yes.
Talk about that one. So, but my whole mission is exactly what you just said. The whole reason I fought, I have chills as I say this, the whole reason I fought to create that film, and then I put my entire life savings into it, and I made it in a really indie way, is because my entire message is suicide prevention. And the entire mission of that film was to show people that they're not alone, and to try and to start breaking the stigma that surrounds it and opening up the conversation. And so many people told me for so many years, no one wants to do that. And, something like the pandemic, which I thought was like God beating me up again, being like, I just finished my movie, and then the worldwide pandemic, like, what? And it's like, again, divine little, like gifts, is that I actually believe it's one of the things that opened up the conversation on mental health, because it wasn't just affecting veterans or people with deep trauma. It was affecting everybody, and our children. And the number one statistic is our children. So it's just like, what you're saying is so important to me. And I didn't want to interrupt you, because I'm like, yes, this is everything.
Yeah, no.
Like, that I say.
So you hit it right on the head. Our first film, we were like it too. We were like, fuck it. It was a nice little script. We didn't write that one. We're writing our own stuff now and everything. We didn't write, but we were given permission by the author to do whatever we want to it. And we felt very important, just like you. We've got an opportunity here. So we re-geared that whole thing. And our first film was indie. We raised all the money. We wore all the hats. We did everything. But it addresses racism and gun violence and mental health and suicide and bullying. And it's a very strong messaged film in a very entertaining, you don't realize you're getting the message way. It's got a really shocker ending that nobody sees coming, and it's a very nice story. But it's clearly saying you are not alone, and something happened to this happy couple, and one of them is not okay, and one of them ends up this way. And clearly it was our intent to do the same thing, open that conversation, because we always talk about, nobody likes to just sit down at the table and go, suicide, let's talk about it. But if you're watching a movie,
one but me.
Yeah,
you can have me on anytime you want to do that. I'm like, all right, let's talk about it.
Oh, we've already got a guest spot booked on the other podcast for you. Don't worry. But it is much easier if you're watching a movie and then you go, oh man, and it starts that conversation. It transitions to that conversation. And if we can use our platform as artists to do that, what better way to live our dream and help the world, right? And we're right there with you.
We were meant to meet, because
yes.
That's literally, I started my own nonprofit, because my first film's called Continue. It's the Continue On organization. Every single one of my films has an aspect of impact and charity. I donate my points from writing all of the scripts that I work on to charity to actually create impact. So I literally say it all the time. I'm changing the world.
Yes.
Through my art. It's the only way I know how.
Yeah.
That's what God gave me, is this ability. So how can I use that to actually try and change the world and make it a little better than when I came in,
Yeah.
So I'm like, we were meant to meet.
Oh, without doubt. And Logan nailed it. He said, I always feel like if you're straying, you get put back on the path. Right. Yeah. And you've brought it up divine intervention, I do believe wholeheartedly in that. I'm very spiritual. I do believe in divine intervention, and what you're supposed to be doing, you do. And if you veer off, it goes, boom, you're supposed to be over here, right? So Logan nailed that. It's like, no, when you veer off, you go. Okay, I'm going to try to do this crazy transition. Am I correct or wrong to say, did I first see you on No Ordinary Family? Is that right? Did you do a spot on No Ordinary Family? Berlanti's little superhero show?
Amazing.
Okay, yes. Well, I'm a total geek.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny that wasn't my first, but it was one of the first. But yes, that was absolutely me. My first like real acting job that I on television that I say is like my first real acting was actually Hannah Montana.
Hannah
Like
Montana.
line,
I
two lines,
may,
quick co-star.
yeah, may have seen you on that. My daughter was a huge fan of that. Yeah, but I remember first seeing you on No Ordinary Family, and then of course Supergirl. But like I said, I'm a total geek. I mean, whatever. Logan, did you catch her on Hannah Montana?
Yeah. Because that was my favorite show. It was
Yeah, I can't put that out there. Thanks for showing the world what my my favorite show is. Freaking ruined it. But yeah, I'm very excited because coming from the acting background and now switching into the directing and writing background, Dustin kind of did the same thing because he started out in acting, but then always had the love of filmmaking. I also started out in acting where I was doing stage performances for my high school theater, and so now. And I never really realized it either because as soon as I got my license, I was going to the movie theaters by myself and people thought I was weird. But now I'm like, I was just doing research. I was just getting ready because it never even clicked in my head that it was a possibility to be able to tell stories, to make movies, and to do these things. So when did you realize that your path was writing and directing for you to tell the stories and not being other people's stories?
I mean, honestly, I think that there was just always this like deep like itching or like longing inside of me to tell
Yeah.
my story of depression and suicide prevention, because I've always felt like, people I know how many people experience it. I mean, I now
Mhm.
know because of my film, it's all anyone talks to me about. And like, if I told you the number of people who told me, that they've experienced it, or, all of those things, but it actually started, the answer just came to me as I was talking, is it started through acting class.
Mm.
I was in acting class every single week from the age I was 16. I took it very seriously. And I had a coach who, shout out Steven Anderson. He was always very supportive of letting us all experiment when we were in there. And
Mm.
so I told him I had some stuff in my life that I really wanted to work through acting it out. And he, of course, he let us write scenes and do things like that. So I started writing scenes from my life and
Mm.
my trauma. And through those scenes, like, people started coming up to me and telling me how much they felt that themselves or experienced that themselves, and started coming up to me and telling me their stories. And it was kind of like this shocking thing because, you're kind of told that when you show that side of yourself, everyone's going to think you're crazy.
Right.
And so it was a very vulnerable thing, but it was something I really needed to work through. And my struggles with addiction, with depression, with an eating disorder, with like all of it, and family trauma. I have a lot of trauma in my past. And so it was kind of like this safe space to work through. And then all of a sudden, people in class started asking me if I'd write scenes for them or if I'd let them act out in my scenes. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I'd rather not relive the experience myself. Like, I'll write this one for you. You can play me.
Right.
And so it really unfolded into people then being like, you have to make a short film for this. And I'm like, I don't know. I've never written a screenplay. I've never da. Then I made a short, and everyone who read the short was like, fuck this short. You have to make a feature film. Like, you have,
Yeah.
and this, because I have the thing, when you were talking, I was like, oh my God, we have so much in common. I have very shocking surprises, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. That's the best.
So, yeah, I like to fuck with people. It's like, I remember the movies that shocked me, and those are what I constantly crave in films. Like, I'll never forget where I was when The Sixth Sense, when I watched it. I'll never forget where I was when I watched like Girl Interrupted or Fight Club, or so many of those films that, like, Seven. I mean, Seven was one of the movies that made me go, I have to tell movies. And it's so messed up, such a dark movie, but it was like shocking. Like, you can surprise me like this?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm the girl from a little age until this day now, I can start any movie and I can tell you within the first 10 to 15 minutes exactly what will happen, where the
Yes.
seed will be planted, who's the bad guy.
Yes.
And if I can't figure it out, I'll remember your movie for the rest of my life. And so that's what I crave in my writing.
Well, that is an excellent way to introduce Desperation Road, because we're those people. We're the, like, we figure it out way too quick. And I got to tell you, when we jump into this movie here, this conversation, I did not see the connection coming. I wasn't even paying attention to that. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? So that was brilliantly done. And the other thing, before we jump full in on that, what I liked is every one of those movies that you just named and or referenced also did a brilliant job of never dumbing it down for the audience. I like filmmakers and storytellers who get that the audience is smart enough to figure it out, and if they're not, oh well, to dumb it down for your audience. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
watch
I'm
it
not
again.
Gonna make my stuff dumb because there might be audience members who don't follow cinema. Like, that's probably not my audience in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, you know, so it's like I refuse that something like, you know, especially when people give you notes, they're like, remember, the audience, like, I hate to even say this and put this in the ebook, but like, the audience is dumb. You have to, and I'm like, no,
exactly.
And don't watch my movie. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, because that's not what I crave. That's not what, and at the end of the day, as filmmakers, all we can do is make a movie we believe in.
Yep.
And that we love. That way, when the critics say it sucks or this happens, and the reason I say that is, like, again, perfect example. I have David Fincher tattooed on my arm. I love him. Fight Club was booed out of Venice Film Festival. Brad Pitt and Edward Norton just like sat there and listened to the boos, and people, like, everyone hated it. And it is the biggest cult classic and one of the most famous movies that have ever existed. And it's kind of like Raging Bull. Every critic hated it. 10 years later, the same critics who hated it put it on their top 10 movies that have ever existed.
Yep.
So it's like, you cannot control that, like, that day, that person's boyfriend broke up with them. That person reminds them of Edward Norton. They decided they fucking hate this movie. You know what it's like?
So true.
Like, there was a critic on Desperation Road. Someone told me, I don't read anything, but they were like, yeah, they opened it up with, I hate all Southern noir thrillers. That's not my fault.
Yeah, no, like
watch my movie. Just don't review me. It's not my fault you don't like that movie. Like, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
And then they something like, in comparison to Fargo and True Romance, it's the lesser of the two.
Wow.
Fuck, even if those movies have to do with me. I had $1 million all in after all the budget was done in 16 days. They had millions of dollars in an all-star cast and all won Oscars or got nominated for Oscars. What does my movie have? Okay. You know, so it's, again, I don't say that's negative. What I say that as is, like, we can't control people.
Yep.
We can't control life. So as long as at the end of the day, I go, I made something I'm proud of.
That's right.
I can let it all go.
And if after you release it 6 months from now, you're not proud of it anymore, that's okay too. Because we're not the same people today that we're going to be tomorrow or the day before, right? It's so we might end up hating it 6 months down the line. And like you said, those people that hated it today might love it 6 months down the line. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. Art is interpretive, and it's out there in the world for people to interpret. And that's going to change every such way. So, you know.
We should hate our old work because we're constantly fucking evolving.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we're failing. If you're staying in the same place, you are failing. We should constantly be moving up and up and up. Like, from my first script I ever wrote, Continue, when you guys watch that film, it's heavy.
Yeah.
I did not understand balancing hope. I do now. And which makes me an incredible writer. Like, I came in on Desperation Road and flipped a bunch of shit on its head. I came on my next film I'm about to leave to film and flipped it on its head and added in my empathy, because that's my gift, is that I've been through darkness, so I can also show people where the hope is in every situation. That's what I tried to do with Desperation Road. So it's like, I look at that film and I'm like, well, I have learned a lot about writing. If I could go back and do Continue again, I know that I'd have the perfect balance, but I can't. And I love that it's exactly how it is, because you'll see my progression and my growth when you watch my films. If you don't, then there's a problem. I'm not evolving, you know?
Yeah. So Logan, let's talk. Let's just dive in because I mean Logan and I both watched it and we said we thought the same thing right out the gate. We're talking about Desperation Road, guys. It's a phenomenal film. Willa Fitzgerald, Mel Gibson, Garrett Hedlund, Ryan Hurst, like some of the most amazing people. We're gonna talk about that too because that cast is unbelievable. But when we watched, we were like that opening scene before the credits, like intense. Like when you open a movie like that, you're like, where the fuck are we going with this? This was kind of like, holy shit. And this wasn't easy to make, was it? Because I mean, we've been hearing over and over, it was a very tight schedule, 16 days. You've got, I mean, that's a lot of story in 16 days. So talk about, first of all, how you came to Desperation Road, because for anybody who doesn't know, it's adapted, right? And so talk about how you even came to it. Was it brought to you, or did you go after it, or how did it come to be?
No, it was brought to me by Cassian Elways. Cassian Elways was an executive producer on my first film. He's a dear friend. He was one of my beginning mentors that I had in my life, and he had been trying to find a project for us to work side by side on since he saw Continue. He was so passionate about it and has his own connection with mental health, and so he had offered me a couple projects in between, and none of them were right. And I think he knew that too. He just was like, hey, if there's ever something,
Here,
like,
yeah.
I just want to work with you. Yeah. And it was like, nope, but the next one. Nope, but the next one. And then Desperation Road came to me, and I read the scripts. Like it takes a lot for me to attach to a project. And I don't say that like, I'm so, it's more so when you have a family and you're a mother and you have, this life, it has to be something that sets me on fire inside, that I'm like, I can't not tell this story. And my voice is the only voice who can do justice to this story. And if I don't feel that, I don't go, no matter how bad I have to pay my bills, because that's the hard decisions we have to make as a director, so yeah, I had extensive notes, and then I read the book, and I basically went to Cassie and it was like, I'm very into this. I have a lot of thoughts, and I took him through all of them, and he was like, I agree 100%. Let's get you and Michael on the phone. And so that's where the screenwriter, but also the writer of the book, he had adapted his own novel. And so we had our first meeting, and luckily it was such a beautiful collaborative process that and he took all of my notes and he loved all of my ideas. And so then started the process of applying all of those, and then me starting to do my own writing on it, because I think there'll probably never be a project I'm a part of that I have very strong opinions. So I felt like to get my hands in there,
Yeah.
And for me, one of the most important things in any film, but especially in this film, is I don't believe in unlikable characters. I think that it's a waste of our time and a character if I can't identify with every person. And it just tells me if they are unlikable, that there's too much we don't know about them. And maybe through showing that, we can help the audience to empathize, to at least understand them. It doesn't mean they have to be their favorite character, but so like I say that with Ryan Hurst's character, like I understood Larry, in the book and in the script, he was a very different character, but I knew for a person to be that way, how much trauma he must have endured. Right. And so the process was like, okay, how do we show you who he is so that you can identify and understand where he comes from and all of that trauma? And then, to the mother-daughter relationship, I have no interest in telling a story where the mom isn't a good mom. And I just never will. So it was very important to me that this story be about a mother and a daughter who are desperately trying to survive. And the whole thesis of the entire movie to me is this one line, which is when Willa Fitzgerald, Mabon, tells Garrett Hedlund's character, Russell, not everybody has somebody.
Right. Yes.
I really identify with that. And so that to me was like, that's where I jump in. Okay, that's where I do. And when the story first came to me also, all the stories were told like back and forth. I was like, no, I think we have fucking cold opening that like shows them what they're in for, and it thrusts them into the world. And then we let them have a gasp of air in Russell's world. And it was a very brave thing for them to be like, okay. But I start all my movies with a bang. Like literally I try and like, I want if okay, like let's look at this logically. They say the first 10 minutes is when any audience member decides whether they're going to keep your movie on or they're going to shut it off. Your first 10 minutes are your most vital. So if I don't hook you in my first 10, you're not going to watch anyways. So I'm going to show you exactly what the fuck we're doing. I'm going to show you exactly where we're going. And you're either going to know that you want to go on that journey or you don't in the first 10, 15 minutes of any of my films. You know, that's my theory. But yeah, so that's how the project came to me. I got very hands-on, and then the casting process began, and I'm very specific about the type of artist I'm attracted to also. You know, I know as directors, you guys understand we all have these different things that we're looking at and or that drives us. For me, and I said this earlier, it's extreme vulnerability. I am attracted to it in everything I do and every conversation I have. Like if you meet me and you're a very guarded, different person, you'll meet a different version of me than who I actually am, because then I'm very quiet and I'm like, yeah, nice to meet you, you know, and I'll never be mean, but I am just extremely drawn to vulnerability and to deep conversations and to, you know, making every moment count that I'm on this planet. So for me as actors, like when I watch an actor, it's everything that's happening in here. Yeah. It's not what I'm saying. It's what they're living. It's like the vulnerability in their eyes. It's the story we're picking up without them ever saying it. That is what I'm attracted to. So there's a specific actor that I'm like, I need that, you know? And I just feel so lucky that on this film in particular, I got all of those artists, you know, because you have all those dreams and all of those things. But I ended up, I mean, it's what my producing partner, you know, on Continue, his name's Jay Seals, what he always says to me is the right actor comes to the right role. And like, no matter who or what you might think at the beginning, by the time you actually get those people, you know that you found your exact people. And that's how I felt about Desperation Road. I can't imagine if anyone had been any different, you know, down to everybody. I mean, Willa Fitzgerald came to me the week before we were starting.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I wasn't familiar with her work, which is kind of like astonishing to me now, because I'm like, she has done so much good stuff and she's everywhere right now, you know, like, especially like, I feel like every day I turn something on and I'm like, oh, and so I'm watching a new movie she's in or a new show or, you know, something. She's such an incredible artist. But Cassian is who actually recommended her to me. And then I deep dived her work. She was coming straight from another project. She had like 3 days to prep that role.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It's silly, but I ended up with like the exact humans I was meant to, you know, and everyone was so game. I just feel so incredibly lucky. And yes, and just to, you mentioned this, you know, about the 16 days in the schedule. I have a minor every single day. So I have maximum 8 hours with them.
That's right.
I have 2 car crashes. I have a sexual assault with a closed set. And I have like 6 storylines of an ensemble cast. And every single storyline needs to be told from beginning to end. And I have 16 days to do it. And I have Mel Gibson for 5 days because he has hard dates out. And I have only 3 weeks to prep it. And 2 weeks before the production started, I had already scouted the whole movie in Mississippi. They moved it to Kentucky.
Yeah.
So wow. You start from scratch and you have 3 weeks to set it up, and then you have 3 weeks to do it.
Wow. Wow.
Ooh, yeah, that's a lot to take in. Talk about pressure. Goodness gracious.
But I came out of it with like the strongest confidence you could ever have, because when you do the impossible, you're like,
yeah. Exactly. Well, that's what I was gonna say too. This movie and this film is just such a proof positive character study of like lonely people finding other lonely people, lost souls finding other lost souls. And I think that's what's beautiful about it, because like you said, you started off the film with a bang, and then entering into, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but entering into the home that the mother and daughter are staying at, the boarding home, and to where they're escaping after a certain individual finds a certain item. I was really expecting her, she had already done something violent in the beginning, so I was really expecting her to do something violent again, but I was very happy and very proud to see, she was doing in the beginning what she felt like she was fighting for her life for. This instance didn't call for violence. She had to do whatever it takes to get out of there and get that item out of there so that it's not brought back to her on possibly a future case, I guess you could say. So I was really happy to see that, because you did bring that vulnerability. You brought the aspect of, okay, she's a mom that has to do what she has to do, but she's not a violent person, and she's going to continue taking care of her child. And which I thought that was absolutely beautiful, and intertwining all the storylines and how, the emotions of people may not always be the same, but they can always value other people's emotions and help you and help other people who they might not even really know get to safety. So I just absolutely love that about the film, because I felt like, it was a redemption story in the sense of just trying to be okay, I guess you could say. So that was something I thought was very beautiful. Was in the book, was it like that as well? Did she not act with violence in that scene where she was leaving, or how did that work out?
Yeah, she never had violence other than I'm trying to
first,
wait a minute, think about the book. Yeah, no, she never had violence again other than that first act, because, it was more survival. Like, what will you do when your back is against the wall? I can definitely say my answer would be the exact goddamn thing.
Oh, yeah.
That being said, that doesn't make me a murderer. I would never, I would never like willingly kill someone who is innocent. And so I think that through line, probably never even crossed my mind that she'd ever had violence again, because it was so out of character for her to do that. I knew the guilt she was gripping and grappling with, and and just trying to survive. Again, it was just trying to get back to her little girl. I think even that, maybe if she didn't have a little girl, would she have killed him? I don't know. Like,
exactly.
Right.
It's like your child, you will do things you would never imagine yourself to do if it meant protecting your child or the people that you love, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was definitely important to me that is not who Mabon is. It was really survival. And also, what fascinated me about this story, and what will always fascinate me about every movie and every character, is we're all just flawed individuals trying to do our best. And so if I don't honor that, like how we said, lonely people and all of those things, and it's like, because the truth is all of us have our shit, and that's why I'll always have characters like that, because the things we can say through these other characters, but also like, who's gonna identify with, like, I mean, I think we've all seen that movie, like those movies where like the lead is like perfect and does nothing, and you're like, boring. Like, we can't see ourselves in those people, like, because none of us are that. And if you're constantly portraying that, not only will we not empathize or be able to, relate to that, you're just going to make people judge themselves. And the truth is we're all fucked up in our own ways, and we're all just trying to be better than the people who taught us,
Yeah. Well, two of the most powerful scenes that one that really spoke to me about, like, this is a woman who is just a good mother and her only concern is her mother, is when she gets back to the hotel and that little girl is violently crying at the window because she has no idea where her mother is. And the sense of relief through the tears that there's mom, thank God there's mom. That was so powerful. That was like so well done to say that is a mother desperately trying to get back to her child, and a child desperately in love with her mother and needs her mother. And that was like, boom. And the other one was, I like how you brought it up. The character that I connected to most throughout this entire movie was Larry, because I lost my little brother, and it wasn't through someone else's fault. It just, he had a heart attack and drowned, but I don't think that people understand when you lose somebody that close to you, what it does to you. It changes you. And sometimes you have a hard time dealing with the fact I had guilt that I was still alive, that I was still here. It shouldn't have been him. It should have been me. And where that leads you sometimes isn't a really good place. And I felt like that was Larry. I immediately connected. I mean, this is a guy who lost somebody very close to him and is now just trying to figure it out. He's not okay. And that scene when he's on the baseball diamond and he's calling it out and he's reliving it, and it's just brought me to tears. I'm like, yes, I have that same scene with my little brother when we're playing football. I like that you had a character that he was not a great guy, but you felt for him, because what got him to that point is the question. What got him to that area? And just, wow. It was so well done. And you did so many different things. How many people, like, you can get really close, male and female, and not have to have sex. There can be a platonic close relationship, which is exactly where I feel Russell and Mabon were. You also did a brilliant job with Dad, Mel Gibson, Mitchell. Just like, his son clearly messed up, clearly had a hard time, clearly was going through some stuff, but Dad's like, nah, I got your back. We're all human. I love you no matter what. This is what dads do. I got you. Here's your car. Here's your house. Go. I thought that was a really good job. So we're really curious. We're all filmmakers, and we have to know. I mean, I've been long fan of Mel Gibson since the Lethal Weapons day. I think he's just brilliant. This is a major director. Did you go there? Were you like, wow, I can pick this guy's brain for the entire 16 days or 5 days that you had him, or whatever it was that you had him? Or were you terrified of him, that he was just going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Fucking get out of the way. Which was it? Because I feel like, I would have been intimidated, but I also feel like I would have picked his brain. So I don't know. Which one was it?
I mean, like, I think that I'm wasting everyone's time if I don't fully admit, because every filmmaker listening right now should know it's okay to be terrified. I was fucking terrified in the best way. Only like, so he and I had a call for him to decide if he was coming on. It ended up going like 2 hours. We were really connecting, and he ended that call with my reps would kill me for saying this, but I'll see you in Kentucky, kid. And I was like, like fucking lost my mind. And then like the fear started to set in with like, all right, you're directing Mel Gibson. I mean, he has so many Oscars, and he's made like some of the best films like known to man. And so the intimidation definitely stepped in, but I just prepped it like I would anything else. I knew that I over prepare everything. I'm a very anxious person. So I over prepare, and so I did it no different than I normally would. But something I asked for before we got to set was to have like a dinner with him so that I could feel comfortable before we got to set and like shit was real. And so I went to dinner with Mel and his creative exec, Nick, who is one of my favorite humans, and his other partner, Mitch. And we were there for like 3.5 hours. And wow, that is when I picked Mel's brain. Yeah. Like that is when I was like, so Apocalypso. I'm just like, tell me. And the coolest part about Mel is film is his life. Like, he's not just a filmmaker, an actor, all of those things. He's a fan of cinema. And so he's seen everything. Like, he names movies that I'm like, I've never even heard of that. And then like obscure, and then like present, and like girly, and then manly. And that, like, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's existed, he watches it. And it was like going to school. I was like, hey, can I get my notepad out? Like, and I started a notes on my phone, which I don't think I've ever actually said this aloud. And any movie I overheard him talking to Ryan Hurst or cast or anyone about, or at dinner, I started making a list so I could go and watch them, because so many of them I hadn't seen, and so many of them were like older films. Um and like, something for me is like, I love cinema, but I wouldn't say that I have a ton of knowledge of everything. I know that it's shaped who I am as a human, but like, one of the things I'm going through now is like the AFI movie list.
Yeah.
Like, I and my husband were like, okay, we're going through film school. Let's watch everything that they tell you to watch on the AFI. So we've just started doing that. And so I made a little list because he was just so impressive, But then by the time we got to set, like, that beauty carried over. And I think, you don't know how people are going to be on set. You don't know how they, as actors, like, what their method is, or what works for them. And he was just so game and malleable and kind, and he never made me feel like a kid next to him. You know what I mean? Like, which is like incredible to hear, because being 34 there, like, directing like your idol, like, and you only have a few days to do it, it could have been really intimidating. And there's like this moment you brought up earlier, like, you're like, I can't wait to talk to you about Mel and all of that. And it was when I looked at him, and basically every day, if you're a director, lunch is the most stressful time of your life, because if you go back to the scene before that you were on before lunch, likely the rest of your day is fucked. So if you don't get through whatever your scene is before lunch, without meal penalties, without all of that, you are effed.
Yes.
Right? And every director and every person knows that, but especially someone who does not have enough time or days or anything, and has an impossible schedule already. And that's when shit hits the fan. You're like, oh my God, how quick can I get this scene? Like, how do we wrap this up? What shots do I drop here? And there'd be that time where I don't like to feel like I don't know what I'm doing. But when you have 15 minutes and then meal penalties, you're like, it doesn't matter if you know what you're doing it, and it's one step forward and you're going to go. And like, I'd be like, okay, I'm really sorry, but lunch is in 15 minutes. And if I come back to this, I'm screwed. So you put your fingers in that goddamn catfish gill. You do this, you do that. And it could have been a time where he's like, no, or this, or he could have anything. Anyone could have. It's not just Mel. And he just like would give me a smile and a nod, like, you're going to be okay. And I'm like, and he said, all of us feel this at this crunch right here. It's normal. And it was just like, God, he didn't have to say that. He didn't have to reassure me. He could have been like, you're a joke. You don't know what you're doing in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, but he didn't. And that energy and that kindness he showed me got me through that 15 minutes almost every goddamn day, because lunch happens every day.
Hell yeah.
Right.
There's 15 minutes of every day where I felt like, God damn it, I don't know. It's not that you don't know what you're doing, but I hate to feel as if I don't have the time to do something right, like how I do it. And you have to get that out of the way, because it's, like I said, there's not a single director who hasn't experienced this time crunch at lunch,
Absolutely.
So it's like something that we can beat ourselves up over, but that one of like something as simple as him giving me that smile and saying like, we all feel that way. It's that reassurance of like, okay, all of us feel this at that moment. And one of the coolest things ever, like I'll ever experience, will probably be when I got to see Mel during ADR and he was directing his new movie and hearing him talking about the process. And like, cause it was like his first day had started the day before, and like of just like B-roll stuff and just hearing him talk. And I was like, oh my God, it's so cool to hear that Mel Gibson is just like any of us humans. Totally asking questions of himself, totally like having moments of like, man, and I was like, fuck, this changes my whole life. Like, because it shows me no matter where we're going, we'll always feel that. We'll always feel those nerves. And if we don't, there's probably a problem there. Like maybe we're not excited, or maybe we're not pushing ourselves, Yeah. So it's cool.
I love that. And I feel like, I would be remiss without saying, then this is a compliment to you and to him. That's probably my favorite Mel Gibson role. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I loved like the kindred spirit that he portrayed and like the softness, and because we don't really see a lot of the softness from him. And I just watched Continental like a couple days prior, and he's the big baddie in the Continental. So I mean, watching this, I'm like, holy shit. I mean, it was amazing. So yeah, by far my favorite Mel Gibson role. And that is kudos to you and kudos to him.
And probably the best Mel Gibson story that I've ever heard. Like, that was a great story about, hey, set aside all that other stuff. Listen to the Mel I know. That was a great story, too. So, yeah, wow.
Yeah, he's such a great human being and such a supportive human being, So I feel so lucky. Also, like, what you just said, though, is like, Logan, what actually drew me to him? The Patriot. Sign. Those roles where he played just an unbelievable father, those like never went away in my mind. So when Mel was first suggested to me, I'm like, yes, because that's the Mel I think of when I think of, but that's because I'm not really into action. Like, so I don't think of any of those. I think of Mel from Signs, and as a father just trying to like battle his own grief. I think of The Patriot, where really, yes, he killed everybody, but it was because he was a grieving father.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Like, also, the humor he brought to my movie was my favorite because a lot of that was improv.
Oh,
and like Mel brought the dad jokes. I feel like, which you need. You do. In a drama, you need those little bit of like humor in there, and it was something I didn't really know I needed so bad until I was in the screening and you hear people crying. And then a few moments later, you hear them laughing because of something Mel said. And I'm like, oh, I love you, Mel. Like you don't know how much you need those little things. And like when they were happening in the moment, you're like, well, this is a kind of a thrilling scene, or this is a drama. Do we end in a joke? I love all those little moments that ended in a joke. Again, that's why choosing great artists, you don't know what they're going to bring.
Well, you seem like a very actor-friendly director, and coming from the acting side of it and everything. So, do you find yourself you are very open to if they give you something and it's not like exactly how you were thinking it, you're like, oh. Yeah, no, that works. That's a better way, because I feel like you don't have an ego, and I feel like you're very passionate about the art, and like whatever works for the best story, that's where we're going. And I feel like that's you as a director. So when you said that he ad-libbed, I was like, that makes sense, because I feel like she's gonna roll with stuff like that. Is that you?
Yeah, it is, and I love that you said that, because that makes me so happy that in the brief time that we're talking, that you can feel that coming through. But like the truth for me is I have always believed that we are only as good as directors as our collaborators. And I could hold the reins, which again, it works for David Fincher. I'm pretty sure he's like, hey, cry from your left eye, don't fucking move, and like do this 127 times. And it totally works for him. He has a serial killer mind. Like, I'm obsessed with his intelligence, but that's not everybody, you know? So for me, I don't want to over control and keep my reins on so much that people aren't exploring, because what I find is like when I'm so busy making plans and they're making plans, and then we're like finding this together, and then we throw all that out of the fucking window, and all of a sudden magic is created, and you're like, oh my God, that, go further. And like, it's rediscovering things that it's like, we can plan all this shit out, but the beautiful little like synchronicities or little things that happen, like, again, divine intervention. If you believe that exists, which I do, it means I also have to be open to miracles and magic and beauty that I didn't know could happen. And if I stayed so glued into like my vision, which I am a very specific, like, when I come to set, I mean, my AD team would literally like laugh right now and probably love to chime in, but I have 5 bags of binders, and I have entire storyboards, and I have location boards for every location, and I have actor Bible that is each character's performance broken down by every single scene that exists in the movie, even down to a one-line character. I have backstory, I have everything, and all my direction pre-planned out. I have a shot list that's like 2,000 pieces of paper. And I'm carrying these 4 fucking bags everywhere I go. And that's what I say. I come up with everything that I could ever need in the moment. And then you let it go. You get it the hell out of your way.
Wow.
You don't it's like, I have this if I need it. What can I discover in the moment? So I try and stay really collaborative. And I think that that's what makes me special as a director. And we all have that thing that makes us special as a director. That's why it's like, we all need to lean into, stop trying to be anyone. I could try and be David Fincher. I'm not, but I am an empath. So as to where he can tell stories that are like so highly executed and like, you know, to a different level. I don't know. Maybe he can't, he probably can, but maybe he can't tell the same empathy that I can.
Right.
And the same brokenness that I can, because I've been broken and I've been through trauma and I can relate to it, which means I can hold the hand of the person going through this journey. And like, you know, I try and create family dynamics on set. It's very important to me. And if you don't fit into that family dynamic, you're maybe an asshole or you have whatever else you're gone. Like, I don't do that. I don't do ego and I don't do bad energy, because that's not what I want any of my projects to come from. We're going through really heavy journeys on most of my films, because most of my films have heavy content.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the people who are going on that journey to feel as safe as possible.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, listen, we don't want to take up too much of your time because we know you're very busy, but this conversation could go on for hours.
Literally.
Because, I mean, there's so many different aspects, but that's just more reason to bring you back on the show, get you a little bit more crazy. And, you know, we're always here to support. Anytime you ever want to come back on, please feel free to reach out for either podcast, mental health or the entertainment base. We could talk about some entertainment news or a top 5. Last week, it was top 5 screenwriters. So, you know, we like to dive deep into it and have a little fun, show some personality a little bit. But everybody, be sure to check out Desperation Road. Is it just available on Amazon Prime, or is it available other workplaces as well?
Everywhere. Yeah. It's Apple, iTunes, on every major platform. And then as of this month, it's UK. It's already come out mostly across the country this month. It's UK, and then it's worldwide by December.
Fantastic.
And where can people follow you? Because we want to direct people your way, because you're an amazing individual.
Oh, thank you. Instagram, it's at Nadine Crocker, just my full name. And I have all the updates and fun on there. So follow.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you again so much. Like I said, open invite anytime. And we're going to be talking to you soon.
Heck yes. Thank you so much for having me. This has been like the funnest conversation. It's so fun when you're talking to other filmmakers.
Yes. And like-minded filmmakers, even better, right? It's just
exactly. I'm like, dude, this is my audience. They'll get my film.
Totally. I'm going to have to take Ella out to dinner, because this was like,
I know, me too. I'm literally
she has no idea how great this was. Kudos to just, like Logan
Ella's
said.
magical. So you also know, and just for everyone who's listening and they're like, cool, who's Ella?
Yeah.
Ella plays Garrett's ex in the movie. She has some of it's actually my favorite. I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying that, but it's my favorite scene in the movie.
It's brilliant.
I was crying profusely as they were acting it out, and she'd like look over at me. I'm like, you know, but she's just pure magic, and she knew we would get along. I love it.
Oh yeah, no, it was a beautiful scene, and it's two people that are meant to be in love forever but can't be together, and that is like a powerful scene in itself. It's just all of it's so good. Listen, like Logan said, open invite anytime you want to come back. And my goodness, I hope down the line, old divine intervention brings us together to work on a project. I think Logan and I would just be honored and thrilled to collaborate with you on anything, because it just sounds like we're so like-minded, and you're so amazing the way you approach things and do things. It's so how we like to do it. And my goodness, such an inspiration.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you for saying that. Honestly, because, you know, when you come on these things, you just want to be open to all I ever want when I come on any podcast is let my words help one person listening to realize we're no different. You can fucking do it. You just got to put one foot in front of the other, you know? So, and also you have my number. I will collaborate. I'm here.
Fantastic.
I love you guys. I love being on here, and I plan to come back. We'll be releasing It's either going to be December or January, so we'll get back there, and then you better call me to have me on your mental health one, because
you know,
do that now, because I'm already anything mental health. I'm like, I could talk about that forever too. So this is just the beginning for us.
Fantastic. Well, listen, take care, and we will definitely be in touch soon. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It was an absolute blast.
Of course, thank you.
Oh my goodness. Talk about a great guest to be back with. Holy crap. That conversation literally could have lasted like 3 hours.
I'm telling you, we were going back and forth about who should we have as the 200th guest? Who would be a great 200th guest? If that is not one of the most inspiring stories that we've ever had, and one of the most inspiring guests that we've ever had, the things that she overcomes and how she turns her trauma into her art and makes it to help other people, that's just unbelievable. That's the kind of people we need in this world. We could not have asked for a better 200th guest. And damn, that was so good.
It really was, man. I mean, we could have kept going. Like I said, there are so many other things, but it's been an amazing ride. I'm so happy to be back with guests, and I'm so happy she was the first one back. But yeah, thank you again, Miss Nadine Crocker, for coming on the show.